Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Apolla's Odyssey. I'm here at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation's event, United We Stand Fest, right here in Cambria, California, on this fabulous 4th of July weekend, Independence Day weekend. And I am here today with a lot of my fellow speakers. I decided I'm just going to have a little party with everyone, and I might keep this going for 3 or 4 hours just for fun. So whoever comes in throughout the night, you guys can come and go. Whoever wants to come in and join this talk at any time in the next few hours. I figure we'll have some profound conversations like we did earlier. We should keep that conversation we had earlier today. All of us here had a really amazing conversation. So it inspired me to do a show tonight, and I hope you're all having an amazing Independence Day weekend. I guess if you're watching the show, you're not too busy, but I'm hoping you're going to catch this later. I figure most people are going to watch it later tonight. So happy 4th of July, Renee and Scott Robinson. So I'll go around the table. I'll start with you first. Can you tell the audience here your name and your background, what you do, like how you became a speaker at this event?
My name is Keith Mitchell. I was former NFL football player. I played 6 years in New Orleans, a year in Houston and Jacksonville. And I was all pro at the position. I sustained an injury my last season, left me paralyzed, as an athlete, being able to move one moment and then the next moment just not sure what the rest of my life is going to look like. And, depending on medical to tell me, the answer, like, okay, am I going to be okay? And, realizing where I was even with that thought, suffered spinal contusion. So they didn't know, they didn't have an answer for me. So I went through the process, and through the process, I learned conscious breathing. And conscious breathing, that dynamic, the interesting part of that, it gave me a tool. And so when I had a tool in the predicament that I was in, I was no longer the victim. And so it allowed me to see how I could heal myself or participate at least in the sequence. And so it just changed the whole trajectory of my life and where I was, my thinking. And it put me on this path of just creating some really interesting things. And I guess it has me aligned with some of these amazing minds that we see here at the table. So
that's really incredible. And so were you this kind of started you on a spiritual path where you weren't really on one before this happened?
I was on, my father's a preacher. We got so many churches in our family. So it's like, it's so funny. I have on one side, I have all preachers, and on this other side, a lot of my family were into trouble. So we had some gangsters. So I guess I'm the epitome of that spiritual gangster.
Oh, that's amazing.
So just that combination, I guess. But, so I've always had a curiosity and a learning. I had great parents. They raised me right, I feel, and so I already had that kind of solid foundation. So everything else was just compounded upon that.
So you had a really insane UFO experience recently. Can you talk? I know, just jumping right in there. Well, a lot of my audience are part of the UFO disclosure community, so they won't be too weirded out about it.
Okay.
So if you could give the audience here a little bit of that experience, I'm sure they'd like to hear it.
Oh, wow. The thing is that what I'm so happy about through that experience is that I wasn't by myself. Because after coming through a situation like that, you could be like, am I losing my mind? Because it's just a whole different reality than what we've the norm. So I was in Pacific Palisades because I've living in LA for about the last 10 years. And then we were just having a conversation with a couple of friends at the beach. We're looking at, and then some dolphins popped up, and we were all looking at the dolphins. And one of my friends, she yells, like, what is that? And she's looking in the air, probably about 400, 500 feet. And we all look, and it's this object, right? And the most fascinating thing about it was this light that it had with it. I had never seen such a bright light that exuded from this whatever capsule, whatever it was. It was a dark green looking type capsule, but it was going at a different pace. It felt like it was a different plane. And for a second, it just kind of froze to like show us, reveal itself to us, and then it just went into a whole warp speed and disappeared, like kind of like Star Trek. You know, I was a Star Trek fan. Growing up.
Did you know I'm actually in Star Trek?
No, I didn't.
I'm
know
in
that.
the new season, Star Trek Picard.
Okay.
I'm just like an alien on Data's
I
planet.
knew you. I knew you felt different. You had a different energy about you.
I don't have like lines. I'm not that cool. I'm just kind of like running around doing alien stuff. Pretty much what I do in real life.
Yeah, just doing alien stuff. But yeah, so when it went in that warp speed, it disappeared. And again, because I saw something, I felt I saw something different like that for the first time. I mean, my nervous system was just kind of like just shocked. I was like, "Whoa, this is a different vibe."
Danny
is
is
very
here.
interesting thing. Yeah, Chief is back. Yes, got the blessing. But yeah, so yeah, it just really shocked me. I guess it just pierced my quantum field, and yeah, it's a believer. I'm like, show me more.
Did this happen before or after your injury experience?
Oh, after I retired in 2005, so this has been. I know my mind could at least, be equipped to deal with this. Like back then, I'd be like, whatever, but now it's like something totally different.
It's interesting. A lot of people ask, like, I always wonder if I actually saw an alien because, I work in the UFO community. So people are always like, when I tell people about, the work I do, they're like, oh, have you ever seen an alien, or what would it be like if you met one? And to me, it's like, it's crazy to think like you don't know how you would actually react in that situation if you saw something extraterrestrial or a UFO until you actually experience it. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people would probably could die from a heart attack just from, seeing something so wild that they haven't seen before. So that's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I totally agree because that whole night I was just kind of just wired like that. It's just my nervous system was just kind of shocked. And even walking back to my car, I was like, whoa, what the heck did I just see? Like, are y'all like, how can you just jump to the next conversation after just seeing that, So, yeah, I can only imagine a novice or just a person who's not equipped mentally to be able to handle that could happen to them.
Amazing. So what got you involved with the Free and Equal Elections Foundation?
Well, Christina is amazing, person. I'm an advocate for being on the platform for change. I come from that community that you can call it the esoteric world. But, even as I teach the practice of mindfulness, I'm a believer that we have to have a call to action. Like you can have a prayer, you can have a meditation, you can contemplate, but what do we do after that? Like, and then contemplation, as I teach it, is to get the knowledge like this man right here is going to be blessing us with so much knowledge. It's just to dig in, to ask the question, like, where does this come from? To realize the origin so we can realize what we're actually dealing with. So a lot of times people go with their feelings or emotions and we kind of stay on the surface, but we can't solve problems on the surface. We can only band-aid, patch things up on the surface. We got to get into the depths and to realize the real problem that's at hand. So unless we do that, we don't begin to even do anything as far as a solution. So that's what I love about this platform, because we got people who are actually saying, okay, this is the problem. This is 20, 30 years of research showcasing the problem. And, so they're doing the due diligence for you. Actually, you can, obviously check it. But at the same time, when people are saying the same thing, you're like, okay, this is pretty consistent to this person over here and this person here. And the credibility is about the same. So it's like, it's just time. When I look at this platform, it just makes so much sense. And as we come together, I've done 3 different events with Christina and United We Stand. And this has always been a pleasant vibe. And the energy and the brilliance of all the people has been pretty consistent. So I'm a fan. I'm an advocate. So I come to learn,
Same here.
Yeah.
I've been a part of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation for about, I believe, almost 5 years now. I started performing as an artist, and this year was my first year speaking for the event. I really enjoyed it. My talk yesterday, if everyone out there wants to see it, go to the Free and Equal Elections Foundation.com. I believe you can still go up and see the live stream from yesterday, and we're also live streaming today. But, what's interesting about the Free and Equal Elections Foundation is, they're trying to get rid of the 2-party system so every party can run on an equal platform. And I think that's really amazing because, it really brings in people from all sides of politics and, people that are representing many different situations that are happening in our country. I come here as the UFO disclosure activist. We have people here from all walks of life, and that's what I really love about the Free and Equal Elections Foundation.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So, and it's glad to meet you.
Yeah, it was great to meet you too.
It's been great. Yeah.
Our conversation earlier, if we all want to get philosophical again, I'm totally down for that. But maybe you want to introduce yourself now and talk a little bit about your background and why you're here.
I never want to skip in front of two beautiful elders. Either I can come back, I'm still hosting the show.
Yeah.
I can say something really quick, or I can come back.
Yeah, if you want to, feel free. You're not in the shot. So if you want to come around here.
Yeah, come take this shot.
So when I was looking
You didn't have to.
I was engaged.
I'll come back.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to figure out how to get the whole thing in. Or if you want to.
Rotating chairs.
I don't know if maybe I can just pull this over so I can see all of us. Does that work out?
If you come closer, Uncle Danny.
Okay, there we go.
You got
Scoot
it?
a little. If you scoot a little closer to Uncle Danny.
That'll help.
Yeah.
There we go. We're all in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You gotta look intrigued. Like you never heard me speak before.
Okay, I'm gonna definitely. Is that so?
We have to laugh at the same joke.
Yeah.
So, John Nash,
Yes.
give me a little bit of your background and, why you're here. You said you're Cherokee, right?
No, Cherokee is not the word.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it. I was talking to this beautiful brother, and we were talking about where we were, when we came out our mother's womb, and that was like the hood for me, like South Central Compton. And I was telling him when I grew up there from like 76 to 84, that's right when the government and the FBI brought crack into the hood. It brought straight Uzis. They would drop Uzis off in my alley. And
What's Uzis?
Machine guns, automatic machine guns in my alley. And then when our friends, our older brothers would go to jail from what is it? Is it from Biden's law, the three strikes and all that? They would have a little bit of weed, and they would literally go to jail for life. And so when they would go to jail for life, they'll go, you can either go to jail for life, or you can be an informant. So I walked around the whole entire time of like my childhood in basically the crystal gritting of a very terrible thing, which was they gritted basically Compton, Watts, and South Central, all three places I lived. So it was a very unique time to live because I got to experience what black magic was and what this thing we called UFOs, which you're talking about, because I got to be straight up involved in one of the biggest, like we're talking about COVID, but what do you want to call conspiracies, was basically the elimination of like Aboriginal indigenous people and what we call black people in a very beautiful place called South Central Compton and Watts. It was very hard, but it was really beautiful because once I got out of the city, which is beautiful because the first time I ever saw stars or trees or anything was here in Cambria when I was 18.
No way.
When I was 18 years old, and
Wow.
I haven't been back since. And I just came back. So like that is like the space that I'm in, and now I'm here. With my Grand Chief Uncle Danny and Keith and all these beautiful people, supporting what we feel in our nation, which is Yamasee, Choctaw Yamasee Nation, which means the grandmother, which is the Aboriginal nappy-head Nubian mound builders. And when I mean mound builders, the builders of the pyramids, not in Mexico, but in all in the Americas.
Can you please get into that and what you were talking about yesterday in your presentation? Because that was so fascinating.
I'll emphasize the alien aspect. So the alien aspect is when you see pyramids in places where there's brown people or black people, the first thing they're going to say, oh, the aliens. black people couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It had to be aliens. Okay, that's a story. The original people were brown, or as dark as you see as Keith over here. And that's not just it was Pangea. I'm talking in China, I'm talking Brazil, I'm talking Peru. And these people were building pyramids, straight up pyramids. And there's pyramids in California, there's pyramids in Portland that's just been found. There's pyramids all through the Americas. And
Illinois, where I'm from,
Illinois,
the biggest pyramid in America, supposedly, that they know of so far, is in southern Illinois. I didn't even know that growing up there. I didn't find out until I came out here. It was part of a conference, and they're talking about apparently the base of it is bigger than the Pyramid of Giza, but it's covered up with grass.
Yeah, it's covered up with grass. So, and the reason why that's covered up is multiple reasons. It's to cover up the Aboriginal people who were originally here.
Yeah.
Because the real Black Lives Matter is the Bureau of Land Management. The Bureau of Land Management is the land that we owned for thousands of years before the president, because the president is not the first president. There was presidents that were really dark that made the Declaration of Independence. Those were the Iroquois. Those were black men who made that Declaration of Independence. That's why it's such a beautiful declaration like that we're here. That's what they're covering up. And ultimately what they're covering up is the genocide of our women, the genocide of our women and our children and our nature. So it's not to manipulate you in the fact that brown people were here. It's to manipulate you to see that you as a feminine do not have this creative power, that you do not have the love and the expansion to see beyond the poles, see beyond aliens, see beyond the pyramids, and like imagine and create a universe, which is a child. So that's the real reason beyond like all the stuff that people get, you know, why would they cover up and say people came from Africa and somehow they sailed millions of people in a ship for 6 months with 300 people? Impossible. You would die in 2 seconds. Basically, people who were actually shipmen, which were the Moors, barely made it.
You're saying there was originally African Americans?
No, there was no African American.
Or I mean, I'm sorry.
Okay, don't be sorry. Surprise. So at black is not a culture. It's a crown. Okay, there's Aboriginal people. There's people who look like Uncle Danny. There's people who look like me. People look like Keith. And not even that long, you know, if you go really back, there's people who look this brother because there are Vikings here for tens of thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? So like the original people were brown people, and it's okay. That's just what it was. And they were here in the Americas, and they went. Because if you
heard Morgan Freeman is descendant, or he said that his family was originally from here and didn't come from Africa.
Unless you know your grandfather, and they ain't from Africa, you're not from Africa. You cover up Giza, cover up that in Moss, that thing will crumble. That is new technology. That is a new building. Cover up these things for hundreds of thousands of years in these pyramids, and they stand. The society, or whatever you want to call society, the connection between feminine and masculine came over and supported the other, what we call Africa and what we call Egypt, because this is where the original people were right here. This is, or what you want to call Jamaicans or the islanders or all that. Those are the people who were building this and creating this space in a very beautiful way. And they all weren't just straight black. There were just many different textures and tones and vibration. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a cover up, because like ultimately we're all together. And they're trying to separate us, trying to say he's native and he's black, I'm mixed, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And like, or they're Mexican, we're all together. If you put all those people together, then that's a very powerful group of people. But if you separate us into groups and individuals and start putting names and phases and LGBTQ and then separating genders and all that, it's just a distraction. It's just a separation. And that's all that's all Black Lives Matter is. It's all what all these things are. They're just distractions. They're all distractions.
You know, there's been so many divide and conquer kind of agendas going at play here, especially the last 4 years. And I think we've all seen that in the way it's played out, and it is getting really intense and polarized. But I think what's interesting is people, because it's been so intense and it's becoming so polarized, people are starting to see through it and wake up to it, which I think is great.
Yeah. Like you, like, do you know your ancestry?
I tried to look into it. I looked on, I did like a DNA test, but I don't
Do you know the
how legit they
Hawthorns?
are.
Do you know the Gingers? Do you know that you were from a hollow earth? Do you know that you
No, I
specifically?
don't know about.
You specifically.
Oh wait, are you talking about the two author Dave Denon? Okay,
You specifically,
I know
as a ginger, you were the people who came over and created. Basically, came from the hollow earth, or what do you want to call the poles, outside of the poles, where whatever Germany went to, I'm not even saying Hitler went to, and brought back that. You brought that technology. You talking about spaceships and hover ships. The gingers with long hair brought that technology to the men, and then they do what.
Are you talking about like ancient times or like?
No, I'm talking about in the
recently,
1940s. I'm talking about the 40s. Brought that technology.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You as a ginger, that's why.
I know about the. I thought you were talking
that's
about
why
the
you
two
feel
author Dave
awkward.
Denon.
You feel awkward sometimes. Most gingers are usually awkward and kind of weird because you have a different frequency. You have a different frequency, a different vibration. You're bringing that, so you got to know where you came from. Yeah, it's a compliment. It's a compliment.
I was wondering about that.
I feel awkward my whole life. But think about it. Like you guys are holding that medicine, and you got to honor that medicine. And that's why we don't put people in the space. That's why I go back to Yamasee, which means grandmother. So it's no color lines, right? And no borders. So someone like my partner Izara can be part of council, can like be held as a clan mother, as ancient wisdom, as someone who carries the wind, who carries the message to protect our land. And that's a little what we call white girl. But that white girl has that soul, she has that spirit, she has that Yamasee, and that in our Yamasee, we see people as coming into. So you could be a Yamasee. You could have been an Aboriginal person, in another lifetime.
I feel like I
in another
was.
lifetime, but like we have the ability because we're connected with our feminine to recognize that and see that. We don't need someone to tell us that. When someone comes, we go, "Oh, we remember you," because we remember through the ancestors. Their ancestors whisper and speak to us through nature. So that's the difference between Yamasee. Yamasee remembers the feminine because we're all feminine, and so like we all come together. See, all this group together, we're all together. There's no separation. There may be separation in age and color, but like we don't look at that. And then gender, we're like if you look at it, we're all connected. Yeah.
Amazing. And you said your partner, you've mentioned to me, she does she's creating a natural birthing center in New Mexico.
Yeah, so we're gonna there's multiple. It's called Wilka. Wilka, basically, it's a regenerative living center, and it's basically a center that is based around creation and based around the containment of the pearl, which is birth. There's nothing beyond that. That's the only time when your pineal gland releases the DMT, when you birth or when you die. And the only person who does that is a woman, can die and be born simultaneously. We don't have that ability.
What do you mean as like
because your pineal gland releases DMT when you die. Physically, not just, it's not a spiritual thing. Like there's a gram, like what was it, 5 grams? There was a movie about it. There's a gram and it releases. And when you're birthed, you release your DMT and you come into this plane. Only a woman can experience that at the same time. That's why it's so powerful. That's why the feminine energy is held at such revere in indigenous culture, because they're dying and living simultaneously every time they create something.
Wow, and that's incredible. I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah, you did know that. You just don't. It's reminding you of it. You remember? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. We have a question from the audience here, and I think it's directed to you as well. Dodge the Badger says, "Ask them about the star people, please."
Dude, I'll let Danny do that one.
Star people. Oh, we all are star people.
Yeah, someone wants to know. Ask them about the star people.
Okay, we all are star people. The Lakota people, actually, along with numbers of other tribes, very adamantly know that they are from the stars. I'm from the stars. And that's one of the things that we as star people are also sharing, is that as we walk around today, and it's one of the things that, we're always talking about all these downloads, And I had to ask my star ancestors, what about these downloads? Is that something that because I lead a ceremonial life, and in that, the Spirit spoke to me and said, don't worry about the downloads. When we sent you from the star people, your family here, and your star family sent you with everything that you need in this life and even beyond lives. And all you've got to really do, if you wish to put it in contemporary language, is you need to start uploading instead of downloading, because it's already there. If you upload everything that we sent you with, it's all within that DNA, not only of an ancestry, but of where it is that you come from, which is your place of origin. If you come to the place of origin of your knowing and not believing only or thinking only, but coming to the knowing place, then now you know where you're from. And now you know why you're here. And now you know where you're going. And so in that, as a star child, as a star elder now, it's like, I'm here because of United We Stand. I'm here because of the life that I've had to live, from walking in the dark side to now walking in the light of God. So when it comes to places, Choctaw, Muskogee, Yamasee people, but knowing that I come from the ground, like Mother Earth and the sky people, and I am of the air, because we always breathe light and spirit. Where does spirit come from? Does the spirit only come from the atmosphere of Earth? Heck no. It goes way beyond the galaxy, all the way into the end of the universe and beyond. That's why we as Native people, or as indigenous people, because we all come from indigenous peoples, we speak of the time beyond. Because in the time beyond, there's no time. So here we are, and we're learning how to live, or remembering how to live, in the divinity of infinity that lies within. So I've been told if I don't go within, I go without. It's not out there. Source is here, and we are source. And in that, we have the capacity to change, to move, and to bring about the creation of the frequencies, vibrations, whatever you wish to call it, in the colonizer or whatever language that might be, but within the pineal gland and the frontal lobe and the heart fire and the sacredness of the waters of all life, we can move and change this world in the way it needs to be as what we see. So in that, I've got the whale medicine, never deviating from the fact, because I'm in line with the Star Nation people. I'm also part of the Dolphin Nation. As I've played in the dolphin, I've been the dolphin. I have been the dolphin. That's where the old shapeshifter comes from. We knew at this time, the people from the stars, we didn't call them aliens. They were our relatives. And so we never saw them as aliens. They were our relations. They were our families. And so in that, I've been given the dreams, because I already have the knowing. We're always looking for the evidence of what is when it already lies within. And so from that place, it's like we go back to the full circle of go within or go without. And so I've come to that place now where in this world, we're always in the separation, isolation, name making, name calling, all those things. There's a place where the oneness occurs in this life with the infiniteness of being a spirit walker in an earth shell. And that says, to be no one, I am one with all. To be nothing, I am all things. I am not finite, for I am infinite. Not to be seen, I am filled with the unseen. I'm nowhere, because I am everywhere. And I choose not to succumb to the overwhelming of this earth world, but I choose to love and to live in the overflowing of the star world. And all these things are in the oneness. When you lose the self, you now are all things. Quantum physics today speaks that in order to enter the quantum field, whatever that you may call it, intelligence, love, or loving intelligence, all the nothingness. In order to enter the quantum field, I'll speak of one of the elders, Dr. Joe Dispenza, says, in order to enter the quantum field, you have to be nobody. You cannot enter the quantum field of nothingness as somebody. Because when that somebody, you bring everything, ego, pride, whatever, selfishness, greed, all those things need to be left to step out of this earth shell and to walk in spirit into the nothingness is embracing all of who you are, which is an infiniteness of wholeness of all life. So the source and the river of life flows freely as I surrender to the fact that I am not here. You see, but you don't. You hear, but I don't speak. When my heart gives voice, you hear the fire, not the message or the speech. The fire speaks. When the wind comes, the wind brings truth. Truth, magnified in an earth form. Always in the place of who we are. Children amongst ourselves. We listen and read some of the things in the talking leaves you all call books. And our elders upon the native peoples and many indigenous peoples always say, we never saw the outside. It was always looking and seeing the heart. Always seeing the spirit. I see your spirit. We learn these things by watching one another, but we have now become so self-gratified with the sensory world that we have forgotten that this is only temporary. It's an illusion of a delusion we've been given. I've been told linear thinking leads to linear living. As a multidimensional, multiverse, multi-realm being, I am not, so that I am. Oh!
Oh man, that was amazing. Yeah, I think that I don't even remember what my question was, but that more than answered it. You don't have a chance to introduce yourself. Can you introduce yourself and give the audience a little bit of a background?
All right. I am Daniel Ramos, Marcadio Rodriguez Jr., given two birth names from a mother that gave me up at birth and a mother who gave me love as though she birthed me. I was raised in foster care in Los Angeles and had actually really very good experience. Walked, in the fields of social work as a CPS worker, as a deputy probation officer for LA County, as a Department of Corrections parole agent, doing social work, helping people, knowing the inside from the outside, being a part of. Retired in 2014 because I found this place, or I was actually brought to a place of remembering who I am in 2003. And when the heartbeat of Mother Earth rose up in me in a grand rising, I thought I was having a heart attack. And from there, this walk along the indigenous path brought me back to a place of remembering who I am. Since then, I've walked and learned and prayed and ceremony, all these things you may call rituals, traditions, but for me, life is ceremony. Today, we're at this beautiful gathering, but we're in ceremony. When we come together, and as an elder Black Elk once said, when you bring 100 people together and you put each one in charge of one another to help each other, you create the one mind. Today, we are all of the one mind. We're all of the one mind for a purpose higher than ourselves. And we know that from the energy and the history of the two-legged, we call ourselves the human, of our own history, as limited as it is in the linear world that which it is that we speak of, we have done amazing, incredible things of changing all of life on this planet we call Mother Earth. And as she breathes, so we do us. The standing tall people you call trees. We're cutting them down by the thousands of hectares and acres all around the world. They've spoken to me and said, why are you taking my life when you make your prayer in your Sundance? That's a tradition, thousands of years, dancing on the grounds of Black Elk, Geronimo, all of them. But now the three people are speaking, saying, you can't make your prayer to a dying being. It is time to make your prayer to a living being. Stop cutting us down in your circle and taking our life while you make your prayer. There aren't enough of us. What are you going to do? As you all struggle today for water, when are you going to do when you got to struggle for oxygen? Because that is where we get our breath. The sacred breath of life comes from all of this. And we give them back the life that they need. and our and our carbon dioxide, right? It's an exchange. It's an exchange between here and the stars and the cosmic of all it is that we are. They say sometimes we're probably the largest experiment in the galaxy. And so here we are. And in this experiment, it is our time now to show that we can become the one mind and the one heart and to breathe with this mother. You have always. Cole spoke about it today. This young 9-year-old spoke words of wisdom, of being together as one, of teaching and reaching goals of things that people say to a 9-year-old, you're not going to do that. That's impossible. And yet he spoke with conviction. He spoke with heart. He's a fire carrier. He's a prophesied child. And in this way, we've come together as a family. Today, family is all we got. Family is all we have. And we need to stop dividing one another between the fact that you don't have the same last name as my family, or you come from a different part of the world. We are all one family. And in the Nahuatl language, of the ancient language of this hemisphere of the people, it is the Seyolot family. It is the one heart family. We are one heart. The water molecules that lie within us all know each other. They all know each other. You feel a kindred spirit here in this essence of togetherness, don't you? Don't think it's coming from here. You got to know it's coming from here. And the 4 rivers of life that flow through the aorta here, we call a heart, is the 4 rivers of life that are saying, we know you and you know I. And in that place, the water molecules are always everything. We know each other. That's why when the meditation, the teachers here teach us how to come to that place of stillness, to get back in touch with the within so we don't go without. And in that one place, all we have to do, many of them say, take a breath. Take a breath with me. Meditate. I say, take a drink with me. Feel that water in your mouth. Consciously know that this water knows the water that's there and there and there and there. Now consciously bring the subconscious and unconscious together in the oneness of thought and take the action of saying, I know who you are because I am you as you are I. We say it in many languages. The most common in Sedona, near where I live, is Namaste. In other places like the Swahili people and our people, Ubuntu, I am as you are as I am. In Nahuatl, it is in Lakech, we are one, as we are one together. So we always speak about the oneness. We have to stop speaking about the oneness and become the oneness. And in that, in the being, it's in the doing that we get to, but the most important part is what we are being while we are doing. It's all one thing, and it's all one energy. And when one mind comes together, the world changes. We know this. And with that, the star people, they're coming. They're here. I'll speak to the essence of the subject. Yes, essence of the subject being in the whole place. I have had a dream. I've had many dreams in the time that I began to walk this walk. White Buffalo Calf woman came to me twice, and I've sat with many others and elders. I've seen my past life as an indigenous native, running over the rivers, running along the tops of mountains as an Inca runner, carrying prayers. I've seen myself. But in one dream, and one dream only that I've had to date, in 18 years of dreams, there was a dream that I stood in a great crowd of people. There were thousands of people standing in a great meadow with the giant mountains on the sides and great forest. And this huge being, this light being of a very stereotypical form of alien that was present in this gigantic form and speaking to us. And it was telepathically. And what I was listening to is that this being was giving instructions on how it is that we were to save our world. And I was standing in the crowd saying, dang, they're not going to do it. They're telling us how to do it. That's a lot of work. And I was looking around and saying, if people were being in agreement with what was being shared about us having to carry this together and bring it together and perform the new birthing of a new world of ourselves. And then my dream faded.
What do you think that means, a birthing of a new world in ourselves?
The linear thinking of just waking up every day and every morning does not give the sacredness of knowing that you've been breathing the breath of life in the morning waking moment. To not give the sacred respect and honor to your breath of life when your eyes open in the day, you then forget how to be born. The practices of sweat lodges and ceremonies remind us how to get back into the womb and remember the sacred waters, because we were born in the dark. And today people are afraid of the dark. The shadow people, oh my God, what do you think you were born in? You were born in the sacred waters in the dark, and it was love. It was joy. And it was ecstasy when it came. And so why are we not walking around this world in a lot of joy? Why are we not orgasmic people walking around in that pure joy of love that changes the world in frequency? We know that teachers like Dr. Emoto, shows us how water responds, but knowing that it also has an intelligent being, it has memory, it knows us. And so when you surrender to the sacred elements that have been given to us in this linear physical sensory world, we then enter the quantum field. And the power is surrender. And the willingness to walk into the unknown and be comfortable. When you're comfortable in the unknowing place, many possibilities happen. Oh.
I agree. Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
So what brought you to be a part of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation?
My young chief said, Uncle Danny, Auntie Alda, Washi Clanmother, can you come to an event? And it's my first opportunity to take a stand with United We Stand. And he said, we have this beautiful gathering of people, and it's for a beautiful purpose, to create change. And change is the only constant in the universe, so it must always be, right? But, as people, we're creatures of habit, and we don't like change. Let's acknowledge who we are in that human nature. But in that, we are always in the constant of change as it is. So when he said you're invited, I had an opportunity to meet Christina and Josiah, I think in a Zoom call. He's a beautiful flute player, touched by the people, and brings forward beautiful things. But in that, it was proposed, and so that's how we've come here from Cottonwood, Arizona, just outside of Sedona.
Oh, Cottonwood. I've spent some time there. I love that area.
Yeah.
Sedona is a beautiful place.
That it is.
I heard the Native American, the Native Americans say that you're not technically supposed to live in Sedona. They say it's not right to live there because it's like a healing meetup place.
That's right.
So like it wasn't the history was like the different tribes. Wasn't it the shamans from the different tribes would come there and like exchange healing modalities?
The train, from listening and speaking with some of the people there, like the Havasupai at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, the Yavapai, you have the 5 Pais of the Apache Nations. Also, the Sedona, the famous vortexes, as they're called. Then those weren't called by the Native people. Were ceremonial grounds. There were grounds for the sacred ceremonies of all the indigenous people in the area. So no one said, this is our ground. No one built homes there because it was a sacred place for all the sacred ceremonies of all the different tribes that respected one another. And at times, like the solstices and all, the tribes would come together and celebrate. They would exchange corn, crafts, skins, all those things, because we were all part of the ceremonial sacredness of grounds. When they ended up Sedona getting founded and they started building homes and business there, all the traditional indigenous peoples left, and so they no longer really come into Sedona to perform those ceremonies anymore. So
That'd
people,
be interesting if they could kind of start those in a way again with
it's
the people there.
we've gone through our own paths as well in many things. We have forgotten how to do the rain dance. You take a look at who had rain dances. Some tribes had rain dances. Are they being done anymore in mega droughts? Nope. So we're all trying to get to a place, or all making the effort, put it that way, to remember again some of the ancient ways at how it is that we connect with our cosmic universe, and continuing to live in harmony and peace in a world that's filled with chaos, confusion, and catastrophic events, the 3 C's. So in that, we're in that place where people would to go back into and perform ceremonies that are still being held in secret is in a religious vernacular is sacrilegious. But I'll say this: in 2012, when all the world thought it was going to end, and we were protecting all our technology because we thought everything was going to crash, the Mayan elders in Guatemala came together and said, "This is not the end of the world. This is the end of over 5,000 years of darkness. We're now entering in the shift of 5,000 years of light."
It's called the spring period, right?
Yes. It's always a beginning, new birthing, when Mother Earth gives birth every spring. It's how we actually are. The time mechanism in here still listens to the seasons rather than the clock. I don't wear watches. Spirit said to walk with me, you can't be on man's time. But to get back to this, what we're at, though, is that we're in a place now where in the 4 worlds that we are living through and within, from the Hopi prophecies to the Navajo prophecies and all of these other things we have in the prophetic form that's spoken today, there are no more prophecies. We're it.
Really?
No more prophecies. Chief Phil Lane from the Lakota hereditary chief says, today we are the living prophecies.
Wait, the prophecy you just gave on stage, you're saying that was the final one?
There's the one.
Wow.
We're it.
And that was meant for
That was meant
today
for us.
or yesterday?
That was meant for us
That's
today.
No
That's
way.
meant for everyone that's here and on the
Everyone
planet.
right now in this moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is the
Yeah.
time. And that time is that when that time came, Creator says, when you're here in spite of, I'm here in spite of myself. I shouldn't be here at all, a number of times. And that way, I'm here knowing for the higher purpose. But every one of us have been chosen by our ancestral families. Ancestral families from the time beyond that I spoke of, when the sacred fires and the grandmother speaks and said, then it will be Dakota, then it will be Ashaya, it'll be Stacy, it'll be Andrew, it'll be Laura, Keith.
No.
We all were chosen by our families. That if we were still here as families of our families, there were 3 reasons. In the prayer run, Spirit told me, because I asked, being born in foster care and given up at birth, why this burden? Why rejection? Why my life? Why alcoholism? Why addiction? All these things. Now I'm clean. I'm walking good. What is it I still have to carry? And all I said, oh, this is why. You were chosen. You agreed. Because no one else in your families, nobody that's ever lived in your families, who's living today, who is still coming in your family, can carry all the burdens, all the struggles, all the pain, all the suffering, all the atrocities, all the heinous things that we have done to ourselves, our nations, our communities. You're the only one of your family that can carry that pain. And I said, that's a lot of pain. No wonder I cry when I run. And he said, oh, there's more. And I said, well, what that might be? He said, as you are on your path, you will learn how to forgive all of that you've carried for your family. You're the only one in your family who can forgive the unforgivable that has occurred in your family and in your life. And I went, that's hard to do. They said, yeah, but there's one more. And I asked what that was. I'm getting chills. because you're the only one that has ever been, that is here, or shall ever come, who will learn and remember how to love so hard, so high, so long, so deep, so far. Remember to love beyond the infinite, only for yourself, but that love will help all those who are learning and listening to what has been shared to heal our world. For love is the power you hold if you are willing to surrender it completely, and become the unconditional love. Aho.
What was the prophecy you were? That's great.
Yeah, being that.
I know you're going to do. You probably all do.
No, you stay here. You stay.
No, I'm keeping people from the gathering.
Yeah. I want to remind people, breath means spirit. And spirituality, if somebody asks you if you have spirituality in you, that spirituality means the art of breathing. So all you have to do is breathe and create the art, and you are spiritual. That's what it is. Okay? And I get to go host, but I will say one thing about the star people. If you know the Hawthorns, if you know you're effeminate and you have a uterus, the uterus is the water, it's the Akashic record. It records all things. So when the uterus is here, and when the feminine bleeds, they bleed onto the land, they bleed into the seas, and they bleed into the trees, and they have a message. But those trees and those seeds are connected to the stars. Okay, there's no disconnection, the mycelium, and that's why we're here. We're here as the elders, as the men right here, to contain your memory, your creation, your support. And you communicate with the stars, which is the star babies, the star children, the spirit babies, and you tell the babies and communicate with those babies and give them the opportunity to come down and share these gifts with us. So I know people believe in space and outer space, but I want to remind you, when you build the pyramid, that Egyptian pyramid, that was not there. The top of a pyramid is the top of the space shuttle. You go to the top, you build it up, and you go on the top of that pyramid, and you blast off with your root chakra. So all the pyramids that are in America, is like I told you, do not have a point. You walk up there, you sit in Indian style, you astro project into the universe, into that space. You don't need a staff, you don't need anything, you don't need all that Egyptian stuff. All you need is like your soul and your spirit. And those men, those Yamasees, those Olmecs, those Mayans remembered the containment of the uterus in the women. And we remember it. If you can feel it, you ain't feeling him speaking like I told the child. You're feeling the ancestors. There's a reason why everyone was talking and stopped talking and stopped being and hearing something, because they're hearing not his voice, they're hearing their own ancestors, and we're all connected as ancestors, and we're all connected, whatever color you perceive or believe that we're all connected here. So on that, I love you, Uncle Danny. I love you, everybody here, all you.
Thanks, John, for joining
the ginger.
the interview.
Yeah, I'm gonna go re-host. Take Octavius down. Love you. Aloha. Scoot up. You know, scoot over.
Does anyone want to come take this seat right here?
I don't know. I don't think I.
Or if anyone you want to
Talk to me.
Yeah, sure. That was so amazing. Seriously, the audience is going crazy here.
I can come back.
Thank you so much.
Just a humble messenger.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
This is a silly thing to do, to try and follow after this. There's nothing I can say that's even close to being as significant and mind-boggling as that. But anyway, ask me some questions. Maybe I can do better.
Well, my audience saw you sitting there and recognized you, and they're like, "Oh, Ed Griffin's here." Okay,
Yeah.
so can you give the audience a little bit of background of who you are, and I know you wrote the book on Jekyll Island, that's highly renowned.
Well, after this presentation, I have to say, who am I? Why am I? What am I? So starting at that level, I'm just a guy that started to take an interest in world affairs, much to my surprise. After I was married, had started a family, climbing the corporate ladder, and maybe my ancestors spoke to me. I describe it as my crusader gene started to vibrate. And all of a sudden, these imponderable questions that I'd never thought about flooded into my brain, almost like in the same week it all started. I began to think outside of myself, outside of the human box, and I've never stopped. And I can certainly relate to everything you've said, but I don't talk much about it because people think I'm bonkers, Now, for you to do that, that's great. But for me to do that, no. That's it. What does this Detroit kid know about any of this, And the truth is, I don't know much about it. And I can't help but I'm still vibrating on your thoughts. The closest I come to is when I'll be sitting at the dining table and the conversation will be going on, and suddenly my wife will look at me and she says, "Are you listening?" And I have to, what? And the truth is, it's because my mind often goes into these things. And she or the kids will say, "Well, what are you thinking about, Dad?" I said, "Do you really want to know?" "Yeah. Well, I was thinking about infinity." "Well, what is there to say about or think about infinity?" And of course, the answer is an infinite number of things, And you get into that circle where your question is the answer if you just let it be. And I recognize that was a pattern that came up. The question is the answer. And so it's become kind of a hidden part of me. And I have to confess this publicly now. It's what goes on inside my skull a lot is that I've learned to back off and just let it happen and respond to my instincts. Because I know that if I ask the question, what does all this mean? Why are we here? What is the purpose of existence? What is this thing called the universe? That I'll never understand that intellectually. But if I just let go, I can suddenly get a very comfortable feeling that I don't have to understand it because I am part of it. And that's what you've been saying. So I let go a long time ago worrying about these things, but I do think about them constantly because it's kind of invigorating to me and it humbles me to realize that although a lot of you folks are very kind and you think, oh, gee, this guy knows a lot, I don't know anything. I've read a couple of books. I have ability to put a couple of things together and say, well, this means that, and we better do this if we want to change things. But beyond that, I don't really understand. But I'm comfortable with the feeling that whatever it is I'm supposed to do, I'm doing it because I have no choice. It's what I have to do. Okay, next, we go on to the next question, and that's over, you see. But a man like you and you live your lives, I think, much more profoundly and continuously than I do. I have to wait for the dinner table or something like that to be obnoxious about not participating. So having said that, now we go back to my little thing. So who am I? I'm a guy that started taking an interest in world affairs and decided that my training in school, which was in communications, should be put to work to bring about an understanding, a better understanding of the things that I did not know until I consciously and painfully began to do research and digging and spending a lot of time and denting my arrow a lot. And finally, I would discover a truth, and it would be so clear to me after a while, I'd say to myself, well, that's pretty simple. Why didn't they just say it, you know? And that's when I began to realize that the reason they don't just say it is either because they don't know it and they're trying to cover it up, or because they don't want me to know it, because it has some advantage for me to be stupid. And more often I find, or at least I believe that's what I find, that that's the case, because usually the people who are the guardians of the truth, if you look at who they are and their position in life, they benefit tremendously from ignorance on the part of everybody. They live off of it. So it stands to reason that they're not going to be anxious to educate everybody or inform everybody if it interferes with their advantage over us and their goals and their lifestyle and so forth. And that's what I was talking about a little bit today, that the goal often is to destroy, not to help. They don't want to elevate everybody up to a higher level. They want to keep them down. So they're basically on their knees begging for the necessities of life. And so anyway, that's I came to those realizations. And so now I don't worry too much about all of that. I just focus totally on what can I discover now? What truth is there that needs to be discovered and told? And that's my life. I enjoy it. I feel like I'm making some progress. I just wish there were more people doing it. I would like to retire and be the grandfather of the movement. Some people call me that already. I hate it. I don't want to be anybody's grandfather of the movement. I want to be the spearhead of the movement, right? But no, I'm becoming the icon, they say, which annoys the hell out of me. But anyway, okay. But I'm happy with it. So I don't know, that in a nutshell is all about me. That is all there is to know, except that I'm going to continue going as long as I can. What else do you want to know?
I'm curious to know what more about Jekyll Island, or can you explain to the audience what exactly Jekyll Island is and what happened there?
Well, Jekyll Island is it sounds like a mysterious island, the name of a novel or something. The creature from Jekyll Island sounds like, the creature from the Black Lagoon or something like that. But no, it's a real island. It's off the coast of Georgia. And it was on that island back in 1910 that the Federal Reserve System was created. Why was it created there instead of in Washington, D.C.? Most people think, well, why would you create a government agency on a private island instead of in Washington, D.C.? And the answer is because it's not a government agency, number one. It's a private organization, and they don't want the world to know that it's not a government agency. They go to great lengths to make it appear like it's like the Treasury Department or something like that. But actually, the short answer is that it's a cartel. It's no different than a banana cartel or an oil cartel. It's a banking cartel made up of competing banks who have come together and joined together to eliminate competition between themselves so they could move as one industry, as though it were one corporation or one company, and thereby eliminate all competition and to gain advantage, keep competitors out of the field and improve their profit margins and reduce the quality and the options to the consumer. It's a standard model. It went beyond that because they found with that much control over the money system, which they got from a complacent Congress, either who were ignorant or were being bought off, a little bit of both, they were given the power to create money out of nothing, literally. Or worse than that, they create it out of debt. All money that exists in the world today is based on debt. If there were no loans anywhere in the world, there would be no money. It's an amazing thought because the money springs into being based on an IOU. Somebody borrows the money. Okay, you take the IOU and you change the print and say it's a $10 bill. It's really an IOU. So if there's no debt, there's no money. And that's an amazing thought. So anyway, why did they do it on Jekyll Island? The short answer is so that they could conceal all of these machinations that they had to build into the Federal Reserve Act. They were actually designing what became passed into law 3 years later in 1910 as the Federal Reserve Act. It was actually a cartel agreement. That's the answer. If the American people today knew that their banking system that was making the money for the nation was no longer a treasury note like the old bills used to say. Now it's a Federal Reserve note. Federal Reserve is a banking cartel. Most people don't know that. But if they did know that, they would know that the money system in America is issued by a banking cartel of private banks, and the government has nothing to do with it.
And they have one of these all over the world, right? Or the Rothschild central banking system is technically a part of it, right?
Well, yeah, each nation has its own what they call a central bank, which is a version of this. But they're all merged together now. It didn't start off that way. But now they've all gotten together, and they're amalgamated under the Bank of International Settlements, which has its headquarters in Basel, Switzerland. So they move now as an international cartel of cartels.
And the only two countries, I believe it's two left now, right, that don't have their own central banking system. And those are the only two that we're at war with always. Or like,
I don't know whether it's two or three, but it's the principle is correct. Whenever a nation either starts to back away from or confronts the existing banking system, they're immediately labeled as a rogue nation. They've got terrorists. Of course, they've all got terrorists, but these are the ones that we go in and attack. And everybody says, hooray, go get those bad guys, and they topple the government, and now they're back into the monetary system again. Yeah.
Iran and North Korea are the ones that don't have one, right? Right now.
Right. I haven't checked lately, but I think that's correct. Yeah. Yeah. I can guarantee you, if you have a significant, especially a country that's dealing in oil, where there's a lot of money flow, oil is actually the hidden money behind the dollars and all the others. The international banking system will not allow that country to exist prosperously or to exist at all. They'll invade it. They'll find it to be an evil system and an evil empire. They'll have weapons of mass destruction, or they'll harbor terrorists or something like that. Meanwhile, the countries that really do those things, we invite to the White House and have dinners for them and everything else because they're using our dollar. It's a horrible thing, but that's just part of it, by the way.
This act was signed while during Christmas time, right? I heard it was like something like it was signed at Christmas time, like while Congress was mostly out of office.
Yes, that's true, but I think much more is made of that than needs to be made of it. It is true. The bill was brought up for passage at the Christmas recess, and I think most of the congressmen were gone. And so some authors have said, there, you see, they were trying to push it through. But the fact of the matter is, by far the majority of the congressmen and senators were already on record as supporting the bill. They would have passed it into law. So I think there's more made out of that than should be. The one advantage, however, that clearly was an advantage is that there was literally no debate. So there's nothing in the congressional record that you could go back and look historically at and say, well, there was objection to it here and objection to it there. So there's no real substantial debate. It was just everybody in favor. Okay, passed. Next item. I think there were maybe a dozen people in the room. But yes, it's true.
Oh, so. I heard there was some weird things that happened on the island too. I believe I saw a show that they were seeing some some sort of secret society rituals were going on there.
Yeah, there's an interesting mixture of fact and I think fiction on that story. Jekyll Island is said to have underground altars to the devil and burial grounds, indigenous burial grounds from before it became an island for tourists. And all of that, I have tried to look into that. And my preliminary view is, and by the way, the hard evidence is hard to come by. It's a lot of conjecture, but the actual photographic evidence, science testimony, all that is limited. And my opinion is that, yes, there are burial grounds there. And they even talk about those. They say over here, this grass in front of the such and such a cabin. They call them cabins or, retreat house. They're mansions, actually. That was an Indian burial ground, they say. So we know that part is true, that there are burial grounds on that thing. But as far as the underground satanic altars and all that sort of thing, which is supposed to be under the Rockefeller House, I could find no evidence of that. Now, that doesn't mean it's not there. I don't know. But it really doesn't make any difference. But it would be a curious fact of history if we could find out. So those things do exist, by the way. I don't know whether they exist under the Rockefeller mansion or not, but they do exist.
You've done some research into those
Yes, I have. Yeah, it's much more common than most people would imagine. I resisted. Well, that's part of the network. Yeah, I don't know if they have any underground altars there. I think they got one above ground. I've seen pictures of it with a big owl up there. I don't know about underground or rituals like that, but that's part of the network. But I must say that in the beginning, when I heard all these stories about satanic groups and drinking blood from skulls and slaughtering innocent children and all that, I thought, oh, come on, they're trying to muddy up the waters, you know, and put a little garbage in with the truth so to repel everybody from the truth. And so I walked away from that information. This was about 20 years ago. But as time goes on, I keep coming across more and more valid evidence that these things are true. And I think that it's become a major component of life at the highest levels of government and industry today.
Would you say that it would be like a large majority or all of these people that are at higher levels of government, like all these conspiracy theorist type people out here say, or would you say it's only like some and they shouldn't all be thrown into that?
I honestly think it's a mixture of both. Like so many things, a little bit of truth can be amplified always, In this case, I think it's a lot of truth that is being amplified. It's not all true, I'm sure of that. But there's enough of it that you should and I should be concerned about it. These people are sick and they've been working at it for years. And it's not just sick people. I hate to say this, but I'm convinced now that some government intelligence agencies have been using child pornography and this kind of satanic worship, cults and so forth, as a means of entrapping people so that they could make them controllable in public office. It's become a political weapon, not so much a spiritual weapon or a occultist thing. They're using it so they can compromise presidents and secretaries of state and people like that. When I look at the record, I think we would be amazed to find out how many presidents we have had that are, in my view, totally compromised in this fashion.
I heard a lot of times they can rope them into it by just having them at a party and then maybe like having something going on at the party that they're not even involved in, and they get roped into it and blackmailed for it, even though they're not technically. Well,
I'm sure that's true, but I'm talking about hardcore stuff, photographic evidence. That's what what's the guy's name? The guy that committed suicide, quote, Epstein, yeah. That's the reason he had to commit suicide because he knew too much. He was the guy, and his places, his palaces, that's where all that photography was being done. And he had the goods on everybody. And if he had talked, it would have been the end for the superstructure. So, yeah. It was not suicide, no. I mean, I can't prove that, but you'd have to be pretty silly to believe it.
To interview his partner.
Yeah.
In confinement, but no interviews.
Yeah, no interviews. I don't think she can live because she's got the same information. And she'll probably die of cancer or something like that. Or maybe she will escape into the night and we don't know where she went. Yeah.
Wow.
So, Jekyll Island. She's hiding out on Jekyll Island. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
I heard she actually is a submarine, I don't know what the word is, pilot. I think that's very interesting.
Well, I haven't heard that,
yeah,
but why would that be? I wonder why.
Because she could have brought anything to the island secretly, and so this is this is fact. Like it came out. She was like a submarine pilot. I don't know if the word is pilot, but she would actually go to these like marine biology groups to make it like as a cover to make it look like that's why she was interested.
Well,
being a submarine pilot.
It could be. I don't know. I haven't heard that one, but true or false, it doesn't change the essence of what's going on. I mean, it is so bad. It's frightening. And I mean, it's not frightening to me personally. I'm not involved by it. But when I think of what it means in terms of how these hidden forces can control the top political and in some cases religious figures in the world, totally control them, that we have to be very careful against false leadership or control leadership, that that we cannot trust. And they'll say all the right things. They'll tell us the right things. They'll do some good things. And we'll say, this is our man or our woman. But there's compromise, and they must not be allowed to deliver the goods all the way. They just have to deliver enough to look good so that it'll be programmed failure. I think it's one of our greatest risks right now. Because the American people and around the world, we're looking for a man on a white horse, right? Who's going to save us? We've gotten over the idea that, hey, it's us who's going to save us. Yeah. We're looking for somebody out there or some organization, the government or the church or the military or something. It's them, it's not us. It's saying. And so as long as that condition exists, we're ripe for the final blow. They'll put up the man. It'll be their own man pretending to be our leader, but he failed somehow. Oh, he tried his best, but darn, he didn't make it again. That's been done over and over again.
You know, that's like getting a little esoteric here. I've heard that's the difference between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius is there's supposed to be this sort of energy transition where we're going to be more focused on bringing the change within ourselves instead of looking for it externally.
Well, yeah, I think that's the great battle, isn't it? It's this battle between individual responsibility and group identity. It's the collectivism. The group is more important than the individual. So that's why we have to get back to individualism. But now that breaks down into two parts, that the spiritual energy and the actual physical energy. They both have to happen at the same time. If you don't have the spiritual gyroscope, whatever you do with your hands and your body and your energy is going to be diverted. And yet, if you got all the manpower in the world, but you don't understand the good and evil side of it, or the collectivism versus individualist side of it, you're going to be suckered off, and you'll be used like in a jiu-jitsu match. Your own force will be used against you. And that's how they do it. So we need both of those, in my view, and they're both very, very important.
So you started a Red Pill Foundation for waking people up. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Oh, I'd love to talk about that. So that's my favorite topic of late, because first of all, it's one of the few things I can talk about and be enthusiastic and optimistic about, right? There's darn few things you can say, this is going great. So it all dates back to the beginning of all of this awakening. I'd say my second awakening. The first awakening is what I talked about when I was a young guy. I realized that something was wrong in the world and I had to do something about it. So I was off and running around, but didn't know what to do. I was just doing whatever I could. The second awakening came much later when I realized that things like I was mentioning today, that we have controlled opposition and that we better understand that it's not just an issue of replacing this bad person with a good person. We have to look beyond that and say, what is the system like? Is the system collectivist? No, it doesn't make any difference who you put in there. If the system is collectivist, it's going to be collectivist. And they'll get rid of or control the guy that's in there. I've got to build it from the ground up. I began to realize all these things. And that's when I got what I call my second awakening, is that in order for us to do something, we can't just run around educating people. That's an essential first step. But we have to organize and meet the enemy head on in the real battleground, which is not military anymore. The battleground is in the organizations in society, the power centers of society. They pick these things off. The political parties, they got them. The medias, they got them. You know, the church organizations, the big ones, they got them. Everywhere you look for power centers where very few people can control large masses of people. Labor unions, they got them, you know, with 0.1% of the population in these key power centers of society, they can control the whole shebang. And I realized that's what they've been doing. And so then I realized, well, we've got to do the same thing in reverse. Now, we can't use their ethics. We can't lie, cheat, steal, plunder, you know, all of that sort of thing, murder. But at least we can get organized on that same basis and see what we can do to recapture control of these power centers. So that's when I got really serious and created something called Freedom Force International. So we got our little hard group of people, book readers, thinkers, people like here in this group, sitting around, much better things to do. But no, they're captivated by these serious topics and probably go back and sleep about it tonight and talk about it for days after. That's the hardcore. But that's such a small segment of society. Our enemies have that group, but they have reached out beyond that and created organizational structures much bigger than that, where it's not necessary to be so informed and so disciplined and so ideological. Just have a certain instinct to do the right thing for them. And so that's why they have all these front groups and all of that sort of thing. I thought, well, that's pretty smart. That's the way society really works. So why can't we do that? So once I started that idea flowing, we got this Freedom Force International, which was the hardcore. Now we're ready for this larger group around the outside of it. And ultimately a larger group beyond that too. So that's what I thought, okay, we'll call this Project Outreach. We called it Project Outreach, but nothing happened. How do we do that? So finally one day I got the idea, the red pill. Everybody knows the red pill meme. Take the red pill, man. Wake up, see reality, get rid of your illusions. Everything we have to say can be expressed in terms of that meme. Let's try that. So we had a red pill expo. It was 2017 in Bozeman, Montana. Nobody wants to come.
Bozeman's a beautiful town.
Well, yes.
You're going to say no one wants to come there?
Oh, that's what
I would come there in a heartbeat.
Well, see, that's what we learned. We all said, nobody wants to go to Bozeman. Well, it turns out a lot of people wanted to go to Bozeman because they wanted to see that part of the country, never had an excuse to do so. So they came. My gosh, we packed the place. I don't know, we had 600-700 people there. We thought maybe 150, We knew we had the formula. And people came and they liked the idea of the red pill because it wasn't so heavy. It wasn't like read the Constitution, save America, all these heavy thoughts, which are real. It was, the red pill, wake up to reality. It was easier. It was more popular. So we knew we had the formula. We've had 6 of those now, and they keep growing, getting better and bigger. And then we added to that the Red Pill University, which goes on all year round, not just twice a year. And we're now in the process of building campuses of Red Pill University, and what we hope will be in every county in the United States and ultimately around the world. Boots on the ground is where this starts. This pushback operation starts. Well, just like this group here. We're sitting here looking at each other, looking at our faces. You hear the voices. We get a sense of sincerity and passion and fire in the belly and integrity. And we think this is our tribe, another way of saying it. You don't get that on the internet. So that's why we have to have these boots on the ground.
So that's why I love coming to conferences.
So in Bozeman, you would do like an event similar to this one, like
yes.
music or just a
No, we
conversation?
don't have any music. It's all presentation. Yeah, and it's all really deep stuff.
Okay.
And but it's in a sort of a fun way. We actually tell a few jokes now and then. we laugh, have a good time. So we found the formula, and it's growing well. So now we know we're building the mechanical arm of the pushback. You guys, and I'm trying to be part of it, are doing the spiritual above physical side of it. You put those two together, we are going to win. There's no question about it. So that's, believe it or not, that was the short answer.
So,
And one more, I should plug it. If anybody wants to learn more about it and consider becoming part of it, the place to start is at redpilluniversity.org. And that's the hub that will take you everywhere else. redpilluniversity.org.
So what do you plan on doing with the campuses? Are there actually going to be like teachers and like classes going on? Is it going to be like kind of a workshop thing?
It can be that, but the campus is kind of a general term. It's not, at the campus level, we're more concerned about, oh, yeah. We're more concerned about pushing back, getting things done, being influencers at the local level, making sure that the sheriff is a constitutional sheriff or somebody that's not going to go along with our tyrant heads. Make sure that we have representation in the and controlling representation in the county board of supervisors and the city council and the mayor and the governor eventually, but starting at the local level and building up rather than what most people think of starting at the top level. Oh, who are you going to vote for president, right? As though that's going to make any difference. If you don't have the foundation underneath the president, even if he was the ideal person, people can't do anything because he doesn't have any foundation, no structure. So we're building from the bottom up. We think we got the right formula. All we need is a little more time and a lot more people. I hereby deputize you all. Does that answer your question?
Definitely,
Good.
definitely. So what are your plans for the future with the foundation? I mean, what do you plan on doing? Like, do you like want to send people out from the foundation to like be a part of different things politically? Or?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We want to have a very influential voice in determining elections at the local level, because you need that. That's where you start. Without that, you're nothing. We wouldn't have to put up with all this COVID nonsense if we had strong support at the local levels. And it's beginning to work, by the way.
You say local levels, are you talking about like water boards, school boards?
Absolutely, yes. The closer you start, that's where you start.
That's the place, grassroots.
Right there, yeah. And then you can put those organizations together in a hierarchy. Now you've got a bigger group, but they're all, and each one is quite independent, by the way. They're not, this is not a monolithic organization. We don't believe in monoliths. You know? Instead of having control at the top, all seeing eye sort of thing. No, they're very autonomous as long as they abide by the code of conduct and the creed of freedom.
There you go.
Well, you know exactly how that works. Yeah.
Or a little bit more. Like turn it. Okay, but slightly back a little bit. Good. There you go. Thank you.
It's not your turn this time.
Yeah.
Skip this turn. The next, after this one, then we'll get you in on this.
That's exactly how it works in politics. And we got to put an end to that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if your audience heard that. I'd like him to repeat that. I mean, no, because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Part of my earthly realm work was labor organizing with an international union as an organizer. And in that, I did see, coming from grassroots community, good candidates running against good candidates. People who did have measurable track records of their own lives in the community. But then it comes down to the politics as to, who you're in favor with, which brotherhood of union or whichever. That what happens, and what I was sharing with the uncle here, is that oftentimes what good candidates possibly may be the better candidates, which I've seen good examples of in my experience, personal experience, being put aside by saying, tell you what, we're going to get you set up for the next 2 years after this 4-year run, and you'll end up in that seat at that time. So all you got to do is just bow out of this race now, and we'll move forward, and we'll get your endorsement for the candidate here that now is going to be taking the seat.
Oh, wow.
And that's how it happens.
And they just push
and
them
it happened.
out.
Yeah. In one sense, it's sort of negotiated out, because that's what unions do, right? And in that sense, we lose the opportunity sometimes for the better candidates to actually bring the change that is looked for, based on the politics of the internal politics of the way trade unions work, or unions work overall, or community organizations work, who have influence with those various aspects of organizations who are looked at as community-based organizations who have organized various industries. But it does happen, and it still happens, and will continue to happen, which is one of the reasons why this is needed to happen.
So that's what we're going to try and put an end to all of that. And as you said, that not only happens, but the promises are often broken.
Yes.
Well, I feel like
There's other
politics.
candidates coming in between those 2
Yeah.
years.
Well, that was 2 years ago. Sorry, we changed our mind.
Right. And he's right. Yeah, he's right. I've seen it.
Politics attract a certain kind of individual. Like someone who wants to be a politician usually is a kind of individual who usually tends to be, a little narcissistic or have personality disorders or power hungry. And it's unfortunate, because those are the people that usually end up falling into those roles. And, it'd be amazing to see people that aren't, from that mentality, that are really trying to come in and create change on the planet.
Well, yeah, you've touched on perhaps the most important mission that we have in the campuses, and that's to find candidates who don't want to run for office. That's not their idea of a career. Those are the people you want. They're doing it because they want to help the system. They want to help the world. They want to help their fellow Americans, and they're not in it for themselves. If you wait around and you say, well, this guy is no good, we don't want him in office anymore, we got to vote him out. Who else is running? If you wait and take that stance, it's too late, because who else is running is another one just like the one you're trying to get rid of. Chances
so what
are.
percentage do you think of our candidates, our politicians currently in office, are compromised? What percentage do you think?
What percentage?
Yeah.
I think it depends on how high in the office they are.
Senate, Congress.
I don't know. If I speak my honest opinion, it's going to sound extreme,
Okay.
but I'll do it anyway. I would say 70%.
We look at Congress, there are still no term limits.
Well, that's an issue. I don't think there should be term limits.
Well, that's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
because in the congressional level, if you're
Yeah.
speaking and responding to the question,
Yeah, no,
you know, I mean, if you're there, and you're there forever, just like the Supreme Justice, you know, for life, and you're susceptible, or you are also, accessible by any and all influential organizations or powers that be to actually see about having an opportunity to negotiate while you're going to be in office, if you never have to run again, right?
you're right.
And
Well,
there
yeah,
are some very good congressional people. In
that's the
office.
point. I think when you consider Congress, for example,
Yes.
they have a term limit already of 2 years.
Yes.
And if we don't like them, we get rid of them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the political system is that once you get into office, what do you decide to do? Are you going to be there for your 2 years and maybe seek another term? Because it takes 2 years to actually get into the office, find what it is you're going to do, vote on the things you're supposed to vote on, but not really get a chance to actually get seated in your seat.
Yeah,
Because it takes 2 years to actually
Yeah.
sort of get introduced into that seat yourself.
That's right.
Unless you're already there. And then you're thinking about whether or not you're going to run again. And then it's like as soon as you're there, you know, those who are seasoned advisors will tell you got to start campaigning now for the next run. So now your energies between doing what it is you came in to do as an office are now challenged by whether or not do you seek another term, or are you just willing to say, I'm here for 2 years and I'm going to make the change I can. And then of course, you know, your seniors, your senior congressional people, they basically say, okay, well, we know what to do with that one,
Yeah,
right? We just vote everything down that person brings in, put him on a committee that probably where everything lasts forever, so he doesn't have any input, or she doesn't have any input. And as a result, we'll find somebody else to take that seat now that we know that's been raised.
yeah,
Right?
right.
That's
Yeah.
politics.
That's politics, yeah. And so my view on that is that it's not so important how long the term lasts. What's more important and most important is the candidate. What does the candidate believe in? What are his characteristics or his character? What are his political principles? Nobody ever asks
What
that.
are life core principles?
Yeah, core principles.
Yes.
Yeah, not that what does he say this year? What has his life been devoted to?
Right.
If he's a candidate, if he's been in office, we know, you know. And so I think it's more important to leave that open just the way it is, 2-year term. And if he doesn't perform, he's out. We can vote him out and get somebody else in. But we could lock out the bad guys, and there'd be another bad guy come in just as bad if we're not asking the right questions. Or we could lock out a good guy, you know. So I think that the focus on the term limit, although it has a lot of appeal, you know, let those guys, they get corrupted because they're in there. Yeah, that has a lot of appeal. But the real issue is, who are we electing? Not how long are we electing them? Yeah, yeah. That's
I had
really
a
it.
viewer here say a comment.
Yeah.
Matthew Meinhardt says, I don't think the movers and shakers were expecting a worldwide awakening, or they'd be trying to be preemptive to meet it head on with CV hysteria. I think by CV he means the health thing that's happened in the world recently.
Yeah, distraction.
Mhm. Well, I don't know either. I do respect our opponents highly on their ability to plan ahead. It's like, and maybe it might be the military strategy groups. I mean, they got buildings full of strategy people, right? And they got nothing to do all day long, 365 days a year, is to lay out scenarios. Well, what if this? What if that? And they know everything we're doing and thinking right now. They knew we would be doing and thinking that probably 5 years ago. It'd be one of the scenarios. So we're not going to surprise them, but we do have to do something. We have to take one of the avenues that they figured out we were going to do and just do it better than they thought it would be possible to do. And I think Red Pill University is the avenue that they didn't think it could be done the way it's going to be done.
So that's the divine intervention. Us waking up.
It's not me, I can tell you that.
The collective.
Well,
Would
it's,
you call it that? Or?
well, I just think it's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's the way it's playing out.
Yeah, the evidence of what just transpired in this last election was significantly monumental to some degree, because it was like, especially coming from Arizona, being a long-term red state, and someone calling me the next day, letting me know, hey, I woke up in a blue state today. You know, those races, municipalities, locals, states, of various across the country that took place, that really were very significant upsets, were a deliberate sign to the opponents that, you know, we will not go unheard into the dark. We are here, and we're here to stay, and we're here to create more change. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what has been being done for years now, with foundational, organizational, organizing, organism of the communities to come together with work like what Ed has been doing, what Sunkel's been doing with his work, what Christina's been doing in her work, or a lot of us have been doing in our own work, but now we're coming together, and that's the other white buffalo prophecy, is that this would be the time of the great coming together. And here it is.
That's the gathering of the eagles.
On my show quite a bit talking about the white buffalo calf movement, and I love the story. It's really amazing. I actually need to run to the bathroom for a second, so.
Well, what do we do about that?
Can you guys maybe talk about the Free and Equal Elections Committee and how you got involved in the Free and Equal Elections?
Let's let Richard say something. He's a new candidate.
Okay, well, I'd like to talk with him.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and also, you're slightly off camera, so
So
I don't know, but
here.
let me just.
I
run to
think,
the bathroom.
yeah, I'm done, so I'll move over to,
I'm going to stretch while there's a bit of
yeah,
a break.
this is
take a break.
it's a pot break.
Was she live streaming?
Yeah, she's live streaming.
There we go. Boom.
Thank you, Sean. I'm the only guy dressed fine.
Take a walk a little bit.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I should have known you. Oh. You're gonna be here for a while?
All day today, and go to the beach tomorrow.
Okay. You want to go up to my place and have a special lunch or something?
Yeah. What, tomorrow?
Today?
Today? Well, I assume they're going until 10 o'clock.
Oh, well. I'm not gonna be
But I would love to. We would love to.
Yes, we would. I'm
It's a
sorry.
sweet
I
invitation.
didn't have it easy.
Does tomorrow work at all?
I'm sure it will, yeah. I think I have anything in conflict. Tomorrow is what?
Just wanted to put our feet in the water for a few minutes, but other than that.
You might want to have more than a few minutes.
I'm sorry I didn't make it.
No, you can still go.
Maybe.
Done?
Yeah.
Well, I got mine, but I
If
did
I
run
just
in
sit
time.
here doing one person.
Yeah, just go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, Uncle
I have no
Danny.
conflict at all.
Uncle Danny.
Sorry, everyone. Had to run to the bathroom real quick there, but we're gonna keep this going. There's a headliner on stage right now, so I don't want to keep most of the audience here from seeing the
I'm gonna
headliner.
find it, but it'll be in the wrong place.
Oh,
Why don't we email Ed
right now. And say, what's
Thank
your
you so
address?
much for coming on.
Send us the map.
I need the password for the internet.
Yeah,
Wi-Fi.
I don't know if I should end this or
Let me
maybe
write down your email.
continue here with the.
Yes, somebody who looks like they know what they're doing, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, they
But I'm
put
gonna-
the pin
Okay,
on the
I
wrong
might
side of
keep
the
this
hill.
going and just.
But get him framed.
Do the Wi-Fi.
It's classy piano 788.
And then the idea of
If anyone here has any questions about the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, please comment it in the comments here. I'm going to get the camera a little resituated.
I think he just gave it to me. So.
Maybe have tea with that. Tea with that in the morning.
That sounds good.
After I went in prayer to gate the whole he didn't
Thank
like
you.
it.
Still going.
To,
Just want to get.
I went to a doctor hospital.
We get up in the morning, we'll go to the beach, we'll get too cold.
So
So what's that tea?
third time gave
Sorry, everyone. Brief interlude here. We're having the main headliners going on stage, so we're just kind of resituating ourselves. Apparently, I've been causing too much of an audience in here and distracting from the actual event. Just reading your comments here.
Okay.
And I gave you my phone number too.
Okay.
85 558 35 22.
Hello, everyone out there.
Coffee in the morning.
So if you're just tuning in now, we are live from Cambria, California, and this is the Free and Equal Elections
We
Foundation
wouldn't tell
throws
anybody.
this event. It is
Got a bottle of
a,
wine here.
basically an organization where they're trying to get rid of the two-party system so that every party can run on an equal
I'll have
platform.
coffee.
So I was actually interviewed for their documentary earlier today. It was pretty interesting. We had a really good time. I just interviewed a lot of the speakers. If you're just tuning in now, had a lot of the speakers
Did you win?
that have been
They said you
speaking
win.
today come on
Oh,
and
yeah. Well,
basically just talk about themselves and how they got involved in the Free and Equal Elections
We do
Foundation.
tea.
I drink.
We do tea.
Tea.
I drink. I like green coffee. Has it
Just,
been-
just give me a call. When you're ready.
Yeah, well, let's just
I work late and I sleep late. But anytime you want to come,
say 10 o'clock in the morning. And then we'll go down to the beach after that. We can take you with us if you want.
I can.
You don't do the beach.
Giraffe says, "Is there any
You can tell us
female
where to go,
giraffe
though.
there?" If you by that you mean female speakers, we do have some. There's actually a headliner on stage right now, so a lot of people had to go over and check that out. But
I think
I'm going to
interrupted
be
you.
still here interviewing Richard Gage.
You would be wonderful. It'd be nice to see you.
Just waiting right now.
Nice to sit down.
But yeah, I'll send you the map.
Yes, I have Bob Ross on my laptop
I
here.
think I do. Is it the same one that I sent you emails before?
I don't remember. Oh, my email is,
Yeah.
yeah. Because
I sent you the
we're
map.
connected by email.
Okay, well, I'll
But
send you.
I was going to have her send you an email and you could reply to it.
That would be even better.
Yeah. What?
Okay, so that's it.
Oh no, I'm
Gmail.
live. I'm doing a live show right now.
31@gmail.com.
I'm just waiting.
My maiden name is Griffin, but it's spelled with an E-N instead
Oh.
of an I-N. Although everyone wants to spell it with an I,
31.
I just automatically.
Where's the 31 come from?
Keith,
You don't know? No. Birthday.
Oh, birthday. That's your birthday?
31st or 31?
No,
1931.
did you
Oh,
want to talk
sweet.
about it?
Cool.
Oh, that's a while ago.
That's
Aw.
ancient history.
Wow. That's when we did have an America almost.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I loved your speech.
Yeah,
Sorry,
thank
I'm
you.
just gonna get this going. Oh, did you want to come up here and talk?
Not necessarily, but Keith asked me to sit here, which is why I did.
Oh, okay.
Well, you guys were already going, so I did.
No.
Okay, well, I think I'll just go ahead and end this right
Do you
now
wanna talk
then.
now? 2 minutes Before I leave?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move it into that one.
All right, thanks so much, everyone, for being here at the United We Stand Fest show. It was good to have you all on. Ooh, my lighting just fell. So I'm going to get back to the conference. Main headliners on now, so we'll all talk soon. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Until next time on Paul's Odyssey, over and out.